The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence here on the Hard Rock Empire, episode number 94 of the Hard Rock Empire, episode number 197 of the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us on this Sunday evening on the East Coast of the U.S. of A. We are back with another week of the best hard rock and heavy metal releases. Today we are looking at the releases of November the 14th. So that will be up on the list today. Of course, we'll start off with some news headlines. We'll talk about the new releases. We'll head into the vault where we'll talk about a couple of classic albums you need to check out. And we'll wrap things up with our question of the week, the second of 3 weeks in a row that we have Christmas themes for our question of the week. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Another strong week. I hope that continues toward the end of the year, knowing that new releases are probably going to start dwindling as we get into December. Yeah, kind of excited about all this. Kind of curious going into the news segment later. Have we found another vehicle that maybe might help theaters survive? And I'm excited to hear about what other tours are going to be coming around next summer.
Yeah, we're going to jump into that in the news headlines. And I think, before we kind of jump into the specific story that you're referencing, I think, one of the things we've seen in, kind of specifically with the Sphere in Las Vegas is that whether it's retro movies, whether it's concert events, it feels like that's a good way to kind of fill dates when, there's not anything live going on. And for movie theaters that have just been struggling, even pre-pandemic, let's be real. I mean, the pandemic exacerbated what their issues were, but this has been going on for a while. So trying to figure out, how do you get people to show up at the movies, especially when everybody's home theater systems are so great now?
Well, then you consider, too, if this Netflix, Paramount thing, or Warner thing happens, Netflix isn't interested in putting things in theaters, so
I would think not. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But maybe they're going to fill theaters with music content. So our first story today in our news headlines has been pasted into the chat. Of course, Megadeth's going to be in the news a lot over the next couple of years. Obviously, they're ramping up for their final album and their farewell tour for however long that moves on. But we're also going to be getting a cinematic event, I guess is what they're calling it. It will be in theaters on Thursday, January the 22nd. And that, of course, is the eve of the release of their final studio album on January 23rd. It'll screen in over 1,000 cinemas across more than 35 countries. Tickets go on sale this coming week, this Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 2 p.m. GMT if you're over in Europe. In Megadeth Behind the Mask, we're going to get a lot of interview content with Dave Mustaine talking about the entire 40-year career. It's going to be really interesting. We're also going to, I guess, maybe get a sneak peek of the new album, I think is what I saw in the article. So, I think it's obviously, number one, a great idea to promote the new final album that's coming out, but also a way to get more people to go to the theaters, because I have a feeling a lot of Megadeth fans, a lot of metal fans in general, will be interested in lining up for this.
Yeah, I think even if you're not a huge Megadeth fan, I think the concept of what they're trying to do here is worth checking out just to see if it's something that maybe you'd like to see your favorite band employ in the future. Article mentions it's going to be in over 1,000 theaters across 35 countries. Also serves as a listening party where the new album will be heard in full at the event. I don't think there are enough really good music documentaries anyway, so if this has that kind of thing going on, I think that's fantastic. It's been years since both the Behind the Music and the Behind the Music remastered for Megadeth, and I would like to see it kind of be more some of the positive stories behind Megadeth, because I feel like between the Behind the Music and then also Dave's appearance on Metallica, Some Kind of Monster, he isn't always painted in the best light historically, and I hope this is a chance to kind of shed a decent light on him, where it's not like him complaining about Metallica or anything like that, because the dude's had an amazing career.
He has, and obviously the bitterness of how it all started certainly is never going to go away, but I think, like you said, when it's all said and done, when people look back on their career, 10, 20 years from now, you want that to be the things that Dave and everybody that was in the band accomplished, because it's been an amazing run, and as I've said many times on this podcast, I was kind of late to the party getting to Megadeth, but I've never seen a bad Megadeth show. Every time I see them live, it's amazing. And again, this isn't you know, the pyro and the techno and the flipping drum kits, and some of the bands give you. It's just a straight up metal show, and it's so well done. And I think something like this could be a step into getting more of this kind of content in theaters. And like you said, and we've talked about it before, kind of on the anime side of things with anime movies, it's like, when these things get put into theaters, even if it's maybe not the movie you want to go see, you want to go see it just so that it tells the theaters like, hey, we need more of this kind of content.
Yeah.
So hopefully you do get more metal documentaries or even just general music documentaries, concert videos going into theaters. I think
I think like the Rush movie a few years
Oh
back.
yeah, that was phenomenal. And having never had the chance to see Rush up till when and if I ever get to see them, that was the closest I was going to get to seeing Rush at that time, and certainly the closest I'll get of seeing the original band. And I think more of that would be great. I think theaters are looking for outside the box ideas, and I think this is one that should do really well. And it'll be interesting to see what how we get reviews of the album maybe right after this thing launches, because typically those things come out after the album is released, even though most reviewers get advanced copies of them. It'll be interesting to see if both you get a review of the movie and you get a review of the album at the same time.
I'm also curious too, because we're still a ways away from the release of the album. They've already unveiled 2 of the tracks. Like, how much more of the album are we going to see just released to YouTube prior to its release?
I mean, you would have to assume if you're going to do something like this, you wouldn't want to give the whole thing away beforehand. But it's tough because, we go through this every week, especially you, as you go through all this music each and every week, that it's not unusual for you when you're going into finding tracks for these songs that we review every week to find that the tracks have been out for months and now they're just being kind of put together. This is obviously different because it is more album first rather than singles leading up to it. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what they hold back, because I would think at the very least you'd want to hold a few tracks back just to give people the reason to go actually see it in theaters.
Absolutely. And I think first and foremost, we're probably not going to hear Ride the Lightning until you get a hold of the album or go to this theater experience, because to me that's okay, we're covering a Metallica song. Let's give people maybe more of a reason to buy the album because they haven't heard it yet, as opposed to just throwing it out there.
No, I 100% agree with that. So I think people are really anticipating that. I think everybody across the metal community is anticipating that.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how it all shakes out. But that'll be coming up very soon in January. So really not very far away. So you can get tickets at megadethfilm.com if you want to check that out. You'll find out when and where you can get tickets if theater near you is showing the event. So make sure you go check that out and get your tickets early, because they could go quickly depending on where you are and how many showings are kind of in your vicinity. So if we go see it, we'll certainly have a review of it on the podcast. One other thing, different tour dates, different tour events. We like to spotlight, whether it's, obviously bands that we like or whatever it may be. I couldn't pass this one up because this is one. I've seen one of these 2 bands, but they're both 2 of my favorite bands from the 80s and 70s, and in many cases. Styx and Chicago are going to be touring together in the summer of 2026 in North America, the Windy Cities tour. I'm amazed to see that they've never toured together. That's really surprising. Seems like kind of a no-brainer to put these bands together. Obviously, Chicago's gone through a lot of different lineups. They still have a lot of somewhat original members. I don't know how many actual members have been there from the beginning that are still with the band, but that's one band that I love. In fact, that'll probably be my next vault gimmick, is to start going through their albums one at a time. I've seen Styx. They were really great. This is a show that I'd really like to see. I know they're coming to Cincinnati next summer, so I'll post the link in the chat. You can find out when and where they're going to be. But honestly, this seems like it'd be a really fun show.
Yeah, and on one hand, it is kind of odd to think they've never toured together, but at the same time, given Chicago's kind of dual stylings over the years, they seem like the kind of band that the more like rock-centric Tommy Shaw wouldn't have necessarily wanted Styx to perform with.
Yeah.
Like, whether just because when they were like big horn band, like that's not really rock. And then when they went into kind of more the power ballad, that's also not rock. Like it would be like him getting back together with Dennis DeYoung and touring. Like,
Can we have that? Like,
maybe? And I'm sure now, years later, it's like there's no doubt he has respect for those guys. But I get the feeling in the early days and kind of even the late period of Styx, he probably wouldn't have wanted to be a part of that.
yeah, I think that's fair. I think probably you would look back at the early Chicago stuff, even with the horns, is probably the stuff that may have inspired him just because of the musicianship there. And it was maybe less commercial, which I think probably would have appealed to someone who was into rock and roll. But you're right. I mean, maybe a little bit different styles, but obviously both huge of the 70s and 80s bands. And yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun to see them live and be cool. I don't know if they would plan on jamming out on any songs. That could be kind of interesting. There's definitely some options there. But
I just wonder what length of set list we're talking about, and I mean they're talking about playing all the hits, and that could take a really long time.
Talking about 2-hour sets possibly.
Yeah.
But, and the thing I've always wondered about Chicago is like what hits are they playing, because obviously, like you said, I think there are a lot of the band members that favor the older stuff probably than that poppy stuff that they did in the mid 80s. But I would imagine people who go see Chicago in 2025 want to hear at least a couple of the songs from the mid 80s.
I would have to assume the audience breakdown is kind of like 2/3 80s Chicago fans and 1/3 classic Chicago fans, if I had to guess.
I think that's fair. I think that probably is a fair breakdown. I mean, the kind of depressing way to look at it is a lot of the fans from the early part of their career maybe not going
they're
out,
not getting around so much anymore.
not getting to tours anymore. I mean, we talked about on the podcast, 1969, I believe, was when Chicago Transit Authority came out.
That was like 200 years ago.
It has definitely been a while ago, but yeah, definitely looking forward to that tour. I think that's one I would definitely like to put on my calendar this summer. And if you are interested, check out the link from Blabbermouth. You can put that on your calendar as well. Don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. Of course, we're with you every Sunday night. We'll be with you again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be the music of November the 21st coming up next week, so looking forward to that. Already planning some changes in 2026 for both the Hard Rock Empire and the Nerdcast Empire, so stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about that as we get toward the end of the year. In 2 weeks, stay tuned. We may time shift the podcast. I have a late afternoon basketball game that day, so stay tuned for that one. We'll let you know next week if we're going to move it or if we'll stay at our 7 o'clock Eastern time slot. But, of course, you can always catch us on the VOD, on Twitch, and on YouTube. They stay up on Twitch for about 30 days. On YouTube, they're up until YouTube removes them, so check out the VODs there. We've got lots and lots of episodes you can check out of the Hard Rock Empire. But it is time to get to the new music for this week. As Mike said, it was another really good week in music. So, of course, the first thing I will tell you is that each and every week Mike goes through and he will put together a playlist with a track from all of the new rock and heavy metal. He has started paring that list down, so it's a little more manageable for him and for you. So if you go through the playlist that I am pasting in both of the chats at this time, you can check out the new albums that were released on a given date. This date in question is November the 14th. And then once we go through that, we each pick 2 new albums to spotlight for the podcast, and we bring that information to you. In addition to that, there's always a few collections, maybe some really big-name bands that have released albums on that date, and we like to cover those kind of at the top of the segment of new music. So, Mike, what do we have kind of on that front this week?
Yeah, some interesting stuff this week. First and foremost, we have the Of Mice and Men, their new album, Another Miracle. Metalcore, post-hardcore band from California with their 9th studio album. We have a live album from Scorpions, Coming Home Live, celebrating their 60th anniversary. They've released a live recording from their July 5th, 2025 performance in Hanover, Germany. For the playlist for that, I pulled them singing When to Change, and I was unaware that apparently as of last year, they changed the lyrics to that song.
Yeah, I didn't even know that either until
I saw that video. I'm like, what is he singing? And yeah, they definitely changed the first verse of that song, which is, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like that song is so huge because it existed in the time it existed. I feel like That would be like changing the Star Spangled Banner to have words about World War II. Like
Yeah.
it kind of takes out the context. But
Ye-
still, they sound great.
They do. It's amazing. We saw them, a few years ago, and it was amazing to me how good they still sounded. And this recording tells you that they still sound really good. So
60 years later, 60th anniversary.
that's nuts. Or 100 years ago. Like,
Yeah, and as earlier mentioned, 60 years ago is actually 200 years ago.
So it's crazy that they're still getting it done. But again, I've said it before. If you get a chance to see them, if you haven't, take advantage of that. Obviously, you never know how much longer they're going to be out there, but they still sound amazing. It's absolutely worth the money to go see those guys live, even in 2025 or 2026, as we're getting around to.
So moving on, we also have a new one from The Devil Wears Prada, their newest album, Flowers, a metalcore band from Dayton, Ohio. Also their 9th studio album. Going into re-releases and box sets, we have A Day to Remember, releasing the 15th anniversary of What Separates Me From You. It includes special anniversary artwork and an acoustic version of All I Want. Never really gotten into them, but it's crazy when you hear a band like that and they're celebrating a 15th anniversary of something. 'Cause it seems weird to me that some of these bands have actually been around that long.
And it's almost depressing, some of these anniversaries we've talked about on this podcast.
And we have another one. Motley Crue, Theater of Pain, the 40th anniversary box set. Vinyl collection includes original album remastered, rare demos LP, never before released 2 LP live show from the Theater of Pain tour in 1985, a hardcover 76-page book with many never before published photos, an outer box that features reimagined artwork, and you can get all of that for $150.
Wow, that's
Not bad.
not a
for
bad deal.
What all you're getting. I mean, numerous LPs, hardbound book, great album. The
Yeah.
first side of that, I posted it in the Discord. It's like, man, the first side of this album is just, among Motley Crue songs, just amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Again, $150 for all that. I feel like these box sets are really good value. They do a pretty good job of giving you a bunch of stuff, so you feel like you're getting your money's worth. So if you're a fan, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I mean, in so many aspects, I feel like whether it's video games, movies, music, they do as little as they can for physical releases. So anytime they do these like big box sets, it's always really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, we have from various artists the No Life Till Leather tribute to Metallica's Kill 'Em All album. Features many acts who inspired Metallica, covering songs from Kill 'Em All, including Tigers of Pantang, Motorhead with their 2005 cover of Whiplash, Saxon, Diamond Head, Raven, as well as contemporaries like Testament and David Ellefson doing Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, which is interesting. Both just because his history with Megadeth, but also like just the sound wise. Like you're not gonna do better than Cliff Burton's version.
Yeah.
So clearly Ellefson kind of tried to like take it in his own direction. So it's kind of neat, but it doesn't really stand up to the original, obviously.
Like David Ellefson do anything but try to mend fences with Dave Mustaine challenge.
Yeah.
Because
while making it sound like he wants to mend fences.
I don't know. I would love to see that happen just again because as you get older, it's like you want to see everybody mend fences because tomorrow's not guaranteed for anybody. So it's, don't take grudges to the grave. It doesn't do anybody any good and just leaves more hurt feelings at the end. But we'll see how that shakes out. But a lot of good stuff there that you just mentioned. We are going to step aside if you're on Twitch for an ad break before we get to Mike's picks. Again, if you're on Twitch, we're not going to do any programming during the ads, so don't feel like you have to subscribe. If you want to, we're certainly welcome to have you. We appreciate you being here. You can use your Prime membership every month to subscribe to not get ads. If you're on YouTube, you're going to hear us ramble, and that's completely fine as well. But again, we'll be back after this 90-second break on Twitch with Mike's 2 albums of the week. So we'll let that ad fire now, and that way we can go ahead and get that out of the way before Mike gets his picks. Yeah, you mentioned it being a pretty good week again. It was another interesting week as far as, a few new wave of traditional heavy metal bands and bands from kind of all over with some different sounds. Again, each week goes by, I get a little worried that we're going to start thinning out because we're getting to the end of the year, but I thought it was another pretty deep week.
Yeah, I feel like there was something for you no matter what kind of hard rock you're into. Like, you would have found something. There was one band that I almost picked, Mausoleum Gate, was kind of this, like, traditional heavy metal, but, like, progressive space rock thing, too, which was pretty cool. And then there was Ben Quad, his song, and On his actual website, it refers to him as being a butt rock artist, which I've never heard anyone use in a way that isn't derogatory, which is just amazing.
I was impressed with their video. Their video felt like it was
Yeah.
shot in our hometown. Like it just felt like this is place that time has forgotten a bit. And he looked like a guy who would just be walking down our street sometime.
That's what we're not doing. Is we need to take some of these songs and shoot our own music video for them.
That would be interesting. Hadn't considered that as a possibility, but that is an option.
There's another one, Homefront, with their album "Watch It Die," like a synth pop band.
Yeah,
kind of heavier synth pop, but that was different and always welcome as well.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff. So again, we have the playlist posted in both the YouTube and the Twitch chat. So click that playlist, check out all the stuff that Mike pulled for this week. I think you'll find something you like, no matter what type of music that you listen to. But now that we are back from the ad break, it is time to get to the new picks for this week. Mike, you have 2 picks. So what do you have for pick number 1?
Sure. So for pick number 1, we are headed to Brazil. Band that formed in 2019 with their second full-length album this week. We have Creatures, and their album is aptly titled 2.
Indeed. It is not the whatever the creatures were that I found when I was looking for the album album art. It's definitely something very different.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Some sort of kids movie or something?
It said it was something. The
What was that?
picture listed like Microsoft Windows from 1998 or something.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's some old kids game for your computer.
Probably something that involved like the old movie maker they used to pack in with Windows.
That's entirely possible. But this is not that.
No, it is not. I mentioned this band formed in 2019. They consist of Mateus Cantaleano on guitar, CJ Dubiela on drums, Mark Brito on vocals, and Rick Nunez on bass. In their own words from their Bandcamp, they are a heavy metal act influenced by 80s icons. They've become a standout name in Brazil's new wave of traditional heavy metal. In 2025, they've opened a new chapter with Creatures 2, released by High Roller Records, showcasing a darker and more mature sound rooted in classic analog-driven production. I haven't had a chance to listen to their prior work before this album, but it sounds like, based on that description, they've taken a step forward since their debut, which you'd expect. The New Wave of Traditional Heavy Metal website points out that this band often gets compared to acts like Dokken, Rat, and Judas Priest, with which Mateus welcomes, as he cites both, especially Dokken and Priest, as major influences. Yeah, I think anytime if you're a guitarist and you're getting compared to bands that had George Lynch, KK Downing, and Glenn Tipton in it, you're probably doing something right.
For sure.
I definitely hear the Dokken comparison musically, maybe a little bit of Rat too. If you had Rob Halford singing for either of those bands, that's kind of what you're getting in some way. Not to suggest that they're imitating those bands, but you can definitely hear the inspiration. Standout tracks on the album include Night of the Ritual, Beware the Creatures, Pure Madness, Danger, Path of the Night, and the track that we're going to listen to, Devil in Disguise.
Check these guys out. It is Creatures with their new album, Creatures 2. This is the second track off of this album, Devil in Disguise. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, I can see the comparisons in the music to George Lynch. Like, I feel like some of the guitar tones there very similar to what you hear from him, but love the falsetto there. Love the vocals on this one. This was one that certainly got my attention right away when I listened to the track on the playlist, and I'm definitely looking forward to going back and checking this whole album out.
Yeah, I just feel like in a world where we have a band like Ghost who's super popular, I feel like these guys are kind of touching on a different retro sound that I think should play to people. Like, this should be really popular. I also wonder, listening to it on the headphones here, like, it sounds different. I don't know if that is kind of the analog production, but it almost feels more rooted in that time frame. Not in a bad way, but different than what you normally hear.
Yeah, it feels like intentionally flatter, and I don't mean that again, not in a negative way, but spatially flatter. Whereas,
Yeah.
like sometimes you have these bands that take advantage of the surround sound space you can put things in. These guys kept it much more in a more narrow field, and I think it gives you that throwback feeling without feeling compressed. It's definitely a different audio feeling they were
Yeah.
going for there. But no, really looking forward to getting to hear more from these guys. This is that was Creatures with their new album out on November the 14th. As always, Mike has 2 picks each and every week. Mike, what do you have for pick number 2?
Yeah, so for pick number 2, it's always interesting when you have these bands who started a really long time ago and then just didn't release much of anything and then magically show back up. And that's kind of what we have here. This is the third full-length studio album from a band that originally started in 1987. They are Mezzrow, and their newest album is Embrace the Awakening.
Yeah, this was another one I really dug on the playlist this week. And again, that coming from 1987, it feels like they're bringing that time with them, but still doing it in a way that makes it sound modern and new, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I'll be anxious to hear the sample from these guys on this setup and just kind of hear how it sounds different than what I heard earlier. These guys formed in 1987, like I mentioned, originally as the band Necromancy, then Dark Ripper, and now as Mezzrow. The band currently consists of Uffe Peterson on vocals, Connie Whalen on bass, Magnus Soderman on guitars, Ronnie Bjornstrom on guitars, and Alvaro Svanero on drums. And if I hadn't mentioned, these guys are Swedish.
Oh, okay.
I think I skipped that part over. Swedish thrash metal band. Uffe and Connie have been in the band since 1987 and 1989, respectively, the other 3 being newer additions in the last couple years. So these guys put out some music in the late 80s, a full-length album in 1990, followed by a 1991 demo, and then vanished. They had one reunion in 2006, but then their next release wouldn't come until 2022, including some singles and a demo compilation. Then ultimately a new studio release in 2023 that was Summon Thy Demons, and this here today is the follow-up to that. What caught my attention about this band, hearing the playlist track, Architects of the Silent War, was that it's heavy like Slayer. It's musically maybe a bit more melodic in its style of thrash than a band like Slayer, but vocally it kind of sits in that same arena with Tom Araya. I feel like so many bands either tend to go clean vocal melodic metal or the Black Death brutal vocals. So it kind of feels good to have a band come out and be around that kind of sits in the middle of that, where it's not necessarily polished clean vocals. It's very fitting for thrash metal. It's that kind of vocal style, if such a thing has that label. I just think we need some more bands like that, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Standout tracks on the album include Architects of the Silent War, Foreshadowing, In Shadows Deep, Inside the Burning Twilight, and the track that we're going to listen to, Symphony of Twisted Souls.
Check these guys out. Mezzrow with their new album, Embrace the Awakening. This is the 3rd track off of that album, Symphony of Twisted Souls. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. So first thing, love the album art on this. This is another one of those ones where it's like the album art just jumps off the screen at you. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, you can see it in the middle of that top row. This is kind of different from the one we just listened to. I mentioned the last band was almost intentionally flat, keeping things in a space that gave it a vibe and a sound that they were looking for. These guys kind of did the opposite. You could hear the drums over here and the guitars over there, and the guitar came in real high and it was over on this side, and they spaced it out to kind of feel like you were sitting in the middle of their band when they were recording this album and hearing that all coming from different sides. And sound-wise, I mean, these guys sound awesome. And again, like you said about the vocals, I think they stand out because they are kind of right down the middle. And that's unusual because it is a style that, for whatever reason, people immediately feel like they have to go to the extremes with the vocals. And because of that, this is, even if you're not maybe a fan of the thrash style, I think you're going to find something you like here because it's just not, the vocals aren't beating you over the head to go with the fast music.
There's nothing necessarily like dissonant about the vocals,
Yeah.
which is nice. Kind of going back to the last band, one of the reviews on their album was talking about how this band kind of came up around a bunch of extreme metal bands doing something totally different. And I feel like that's when I'm going country to country looking for metal, I find that that's the case, that there are so many just extreme, brutal metal bands out there that obviously aren't huge notoriety-wise, but it's like if you're a young up-and-coming band, like, I mean, I get these guys are obviously established. They've been around since 1987, but I would think that the urge to go that route would be there because you'd have a bunch of people that you could easily tour with that kind of have that same sound.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this. I thought this was really good. And again, I just feel like they have found that good spot to sit in, and I'm glad that they're out there releasing music. And, hopefully they're out there touring, and you can go see these guys live, and hopefully we're going to get more new music from these guys in the future.
It just goes back to the whole, like, even if your plans early on got derailed, it's never too late to get back up and keep at it. And we've seen that with numerous bands over the years.
Yeah, and a lot of them have put out some really awesome stuff here in 2025, and Mezzrow's the latest, so make sure you check those guys out. Their new album out on November the 14th. I have 2 albums this week as well. We are going to start things off in Germany, one of our favorite stops on our tour as we go around the world for the latest rock and metal music. This is a heavy metal band from Gerstetten, Germany. This is Skull and Crossbones with their new album, Time. These guys were formed in 2019. This is their second full-length album. The band is made up of Tobias Hübner on vocals, Volker Schmito on guitar, Tobias Kipp on guitar, Jürgen Wanenwetsch on bass, and Bernd Heining on drums. Apologies for the German there. Certainly not one of my strong suits. Maybe some of the best harmonies I've heard on any one of these new wave of traditional heavy metal bands that we've come across throughout the year. To me, that's what made these guys stand out over top of some of the other options in that genre. You have the melodies that you would think kind of make, you would find on an AOR type release, but it's a metal album. There's metal underneath it, which is what makes it great. There's that balance of the metal side to it too. And, it starts right off with the first track, which we're going to hear a little bit in a moment. The guitar's right out of the gate. A solo is just right at the top of the first track, just lets you know what you're in for, and it just punches you in the mouth. And I don't think the guitars let up the entire album, which is what made it enjoyable. To me, this is a band that would be perfect. You think about German metal bands, I just think of Wacken. I think of these big open-air festivals. I could see these guys on a stage and just people going nuts, listen to these guys. I think that would be an awesome way to experience what this album brought to you. It's great from beginning to end. I really enjoyed this. This is looking back over the whole year, one of the albums I really enjoyed a lot. Standout tracks include Labyrinth of Time, Time Thief, Passing Hours, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast is Echoes of Eternity. Let's check these guys out. Skull and Crossbones with their new album, Time. This is the opening track off of this album, Echoes of Eternity. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
Echoes of eternity, that's where the echoes play. Anthem of our future state, born in a cosmic ray. Raise your hands, let the freedom sing, in an afterlife we trust. Age of everlasting love, that's where our souls reach us forevermore.
Yeah, overall, really enjoyed these guys. Thought everything blended together really well and just made for a really enjoyable listen. Definitely worth checking out. Skull and Crossbones. Mike, your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, just from that riff there, that sample you had, you get this like classic power metal vibe from them, where there's definitely that traditional metal, but it's traditional metal like old Halloween is traditional metal. There's
Yeah.
still that power metal vocals without kind of going the direction that power metal sometimes does, where it gets a little too keyboard laden and synthy. This just feels like really awesome heavy metal with power metal vocals.
Yeah, to me, it's almost a bridge between like new wave of British heavy metal and power metal, and something in the middle of those two things, where you have kind of the core features of each, but not too much of either one. So
Yeah, definitely kind of that same path Halloween kind of pave for people. That's kind of what I feel here.
yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, and definitely worth checking those guys out. Skull and Crossbones, my first pick for this week. As always, I have 2 picks. We are moving on to pick number 2, and we are coming back to the US of A for pick number 2. We're going to be checking out a heavy metal band from Wareham, Massachusetts. These guys are All Sinners, and their new album is We Own the Night. These guys were founded in 2023. This is their first full-length album after a couple of EPs, a live album, and a couple of singles. The band is made up of Mike Gallars on vocals and guitar, Nick Testone on lead guitar, Bruce Morrison on bass, and Roger Chouinard on drums. It's another metal band with great harmonies. That's almost always going to jump out at me. You know, what's interesting is when I listened to the music, I kind of expected more harsh vocals. So when I got more harmonious vocals instead, it kind of threw me off at first, but it worked really well. The lead singer at times has a little bit of Danzig in his voice, but it doesn't take that like harsher Danzig path. It kind of goes into like if Danzig sang melodic metal instead. Like it's definitely
Like Danzig singing Elvis, maybe.
Danzig singing Elvis potentially. We talked about that last week, but it works so very well. Again, the great guitar tones here really bring the metal edginess to this music. We're going to hear a little bit of the guitars in my track that we're going to play. I play a little bit of the solo that follows the chorus so you can really get a feeling for it. They've evidently already opened for bands like Dangerous Toys, Dokken, Metal Church, and LA Guns.
Nice.
So they're out there doing their thing, and also means there's a good chance maybe we'll get a chance to see those guys on tour at some point. It's a great album from an American metal band. I'm always excited to see metal being not only played here, but played by newer bands and doing it at such a high level. That's really encouraging, and would love to see those guys live at some point down the road. Standout tracks include We Own the Night, Dead to Rights, World That's Burning, and Into the Flames is going to be the track we're going to listen to on the podcast. Let's check these guys out now. This is All Sinners with their new album, We Own the Night. This is the second track off of that album, Into the Flames. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Anytime you get a guitar solo like that after a chorus, I always like to maybe shorten the chorus a bit and listen to a little bit of that. And shout out to those guys. I think they've already shared our Facebook post and commented, so huge thanks to them for doing that. And I really enjoyed this. Really excited for these guys getting rolling with their first full-length album. Mike, your thoughts on All Sinners?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this as well. And kind of looking into it, you know, this was released on Rat Pack Records. And you look at the artist roster that they have right now, not counting these guys. I mean, you also have Ellison Soto, which was really good, George Lynch, legend, Doug Pennick, let's see, what else do we have? John Corabi, Lynch Mob, Metal Church, Michael Wilton, Michael Sweet. Definitely a label to keep an eye on, especially when they're going to bring out some new acts like this that are kind of fresh to people, and always up for supporting that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's great to see metal in America thriving. We feature so many European bands, and they're all amazing as well, but when it's U.S. metal bands, that's always really awesome as well.
Absolutely.
So definitely check those guys out, All Sinners. Their new album is out on November the 14th. So that's going to wrap up our new music, which means it's time to take another break on Twitch. We're going to step aside for about 90 seconds. Again, if you're on Twitch, you can hang out. You're not going to miss any content. We'll be back after the 90-second break. If you're on YouTube, you're going to hear us ramble, and I'm going to tell Mike about another idea for a vault concept potentially. So we'll chat about that during our break coming up now. So we'll get that ad fired off so we can chat a little bit. And that ad is now in progress. So you mentioned, and this is what jogged my memory, you're talking about the first band, I believe, that you spotlighted this week. And you mentioned, I believe, that their name started out as Necromancy.
Yeah.
So what I thought would be interesting is to go through Metal Archive and take some sort of common term like necromancy and do a vault pick of listening to every metal band that was named necromancy and finding maybe like the top bands that are necromancy, because you have to think there have been a few of those.
Well, you could almost take it from the angle of like you're building a Dungeons and Dragons party. It's like, okay, I need a necromancer. I need a summoner. I need
yeah,
paladin. I need every type of like fantasy class, and try to come up with like a roster of a concert based on that.
that would be interesting. That sounds like an interesting concept. But like I said, there's some of these band names that are just these classic words that are in metal that you would think there have been dozens and dozens of bands that have used this name. So it would be interesting to go through and find all of them and try to sort through them all and find the good ones and maybe more importantly find the ones that aren't so good.
Oh, for sure. That would be a blast.
But yeah, just interesting. And of course, we'll have the vault coming up here shortly where Mike and I are going to be going through a couple of classic albums. We'll talk a little bit about how we got to those. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with our question of the week. That'll be coming up in our final segment in just a few minutes. But our ad has been completed, so that means we are on to the vault where Mike and I will talk about a classic album you need to check out. Mike is in the middle of two different gimmicks in the vault. Every other week, not this week, so the week last week and next week, and continuing on, Mike will be using the random country generator to travel around the world and try to find metal bands in all corners of the world. That thing has been a little nicer to him lately than it had been, so that's good. So we'll talk about that again coming up next week. In the every other week, in between our trips around the world with Mike, Mike is going through the Sonic Temple lineup, and he is finding bands to spotlight that just to kind of get an idea of what they do, because, of course, Sonic Temple 2026 coming up in May, I believe, of 2026. Is that correct? Because for some reason the dates just escaped me. Is it May?
That sounds correct. I need to pull it
I
up.
should have had that instead of just trying to say.
14th through 17th of May.
Okay, so I was actually right on that. But Mike's going to go through and try to preview a lot of these bands before we get there to kind of see who he might want to check out or maybe not want to check out at Sonic Temple. But this is, I believe, the third band you've spotlighted on this journey. So where are we headed as far as the Sonic Temple lineup this week?
Yeah, so to try to create some order or method here, I've kind of gone through each stage kind of one at a time. I started with the fifth stage, Thursday, Friday. Now we're on to Saturday. The lineup Saturday on stage 5 includes Body Count featuring Ice-T, Sepultura, Creator, Carcass, Biohazard, Snot, CKY, and Butcher Babies. That is quite a few bands.
Yeah.
So, 2 weeks ago when I did this, it gave me an opportunity to revisit a band who I listened to years ago to kind of see what they were up to more recently. And, it maybe didn't turn out all that well, but it was a thing, and I listened to it, and I talked about it, and we're kind of doing the same thing today. We are looking at the most recent release from a band who kind of reached their most prominent in the early 2000s, kind of partially due to the fact the drummer is the brother of Bam Margera. The band in question, obviously, is CKY, and I am taking a look at their 2017 album, The Phoenix.
Yeah, interested to kind of hear. I remember these guys somewhat from the early 2000s, but yeah, interested to hear what they've been up to since.
Yeah, so this is the fifth studio album from the Pennsylvania hard rock alternative metal band. We've talked about these guys in conversation on the podcast before. They hit pretty big around the turn of the century, with their music being featured on Jackass, Bam Margera's brother, so they had that connection there, which is never a bad thing. Reading up more details on the guys, I didn't realize that back in the day, they were actually set to open a concert in Vancouver for Guns N' Roses during their Chinese Democracy tour.
Oh, wow.
But Axl's flight was late to Vancouver, causing the show to be canceled, and chaos ensued, as it always does with them back then. They did, however, get to open for Metallica in 2003, which is kind of funny when you think about it. They almost got to perform on tours pertaining to two of the most infamous divisive albums of the aughts. Also funny that Chinese Democracy tour started in 2001. Album came out in 2008.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't realize it was. I almost thought it was more recent than that.
Yeah, I had to look it up because as I'm reading through kind of the Wikipedia article where I'm learning about this, it's like, wait, how would the Chinese Democracy tour happen before the Metallica tour in 2003? That doesn't sound accurate.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, I know Chinese Democracy leaked a long time ago before the 2008 release. Like I'm pretty sure everyone had a copy of it, minus a few newer songs that ended up making it onto that album. But yeah, just kind of a weird thing. I remember these guys mostly from their 2005 album, An Answer Can Be Found. Over the years since, they've had some lineup instability. Darren Miller, the original frontman and lead vocalist, left in 2011. It seems like he and Chad Ginsburg tried to reconcile in 2014, but it ultimately didn't work out. Darren Miller ultimately formed 96 Bitter Beings. They even released Return to Hellview last year, which was re-recorded classic CKY songs. As of 2017, the Phoenix album, the album features Chad Ginsburg on vocals, guitars, keyboards, production, mixing, Jess Margera on drums, and Matt Diaz on bass. Matt Diaz has since left the band and went back to All That Remains, where he was formerly in their band as their bassist. Dude's been around, though. Like, he's even currently, or as of 2024, playing bass in Baby Metal's touring backing group, the Kami Band. So that dude has a lot of credits. It's pretty neat.
Wow.
Maybe because I don't have a strong affinity for like the classic CKY, I think this album's totally fine. I saw some negativity on Reddit about it, but that's what Reddit's about. So
Sure.
that may not even be indicative of the overall fan sentiment. I don't know. It did get some positive reviews. Blabbermouth gave it an 8.5 out of 10. New Noise Magazine gave it 4.5 out of 5. It feels like a more inspired effort than the Power Man 5000 album I listened to 2 weeks ago. Interesting to see how it'll be like with these guys sharing a stage with groups like Body Count and Sepultura, Creator, Carcass. That stage that day kind of feels a little bit like a catch-all, but it'll definitely make for an interesting, varied experience for the concert goers. Always interested in bands after they've kind of dropped out of the spotlight, what they're up to, and all things considered, this album is solid. I mean, if you like that classic CKY sound, just that kind of somewhat stripped down hard rock, like I think Wikipedia also kind of gives them the stoner metal moniker, maybe to some degree, but not anything like the stoner metal that we typically get on a week in and week out basis. This has much more broad appeal, I think. Standout tracks on the album include Replaceable, Days of Self-Destruction, Unknown Enemy, Head for a Breakdown, Better Than Get Even, and yeah, all things considered, it was solid.
That's good. I mean, it's nice when it's decent. Like, it's really all you're asking for is that they get back together and they put together something that's listenable, and it sounds like this was pretty solid. So.
Listenable. Seems like they put effort into it. Like, it's, you always wonder, but it was. They have an album that's listed supposedly going to be coming out at some point in time, but it hasn't yet. So kind of curious to see what's next for these guys.
Maybe they'll be playing a song or two from that when they get to Sonic Temple in 2026.
Quite possibly.
So we'll check those guys out. CKY, if you want to see what they're up to, check out that album, or of course you can go see them in Sonic Temple. So Sonic Temple's not sponsoring this segment, by the way. I just figure that's probably worth just denoting that it is. I mean, if they would like to, we will happily take,
Yeah.
we'll come in.
At the end of the day, it's just because they're the local big metal festival.
Correct.
If anyone wonders why I'm honing in on that, it's just because of that. I could have just as easily picked Welcome to Rockville or Louder Than Life or whatever. But
Yeah.
no, I went with Sonic Temple because it's the one that's drivable.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So we'll be back to Sonic Temple in 2 weeks. Next week, we are continuing a trip around the world. And where are we headed next week?
We are headed to the Philippines.
Headed to the Philippines. So very interested to see kind of what you find in the Philippines.
I just wish we were able to figure out some way to do the Street Fighter, like in between battle where the plane like flies to the next country.
Yes.
I want to see some sort of animation like that.
I was thinking that, or something from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. Like, I'm sure there's some sort of animation there with the cardboard cutout. Bad guy traveling from one country to the next.
Do I have to pick up the payphone and be told where I'm going next?
Yes, can we get that done? Like, can we get our production on
Going
that?
to Asia. All right.
That would actually be a great way of doing that we should have thought of weeks ago. But it's completely fine. Maybe in the future. Maybe that's one of the changes for 2026. I don't know, but so I am continuing through the Frontiers bands. We are up to the letter T. Each week, for every 2 weeks, we pick a letter and we stay there. We're up to T. This was a band that I really kind of enjoyed their 2024 release, so figured it was a good time to go back and check these guys out. So my pick this week is the Matsumoto Group, also known as TMG. This is probably the record for the two shortest listings of the vault on our little rundown thing because we went with CKY and TMG. Matsumoto Group with their first album, TMG 1. This is the first studio album from the Japan-based supergroup Matsumoto Group, released June 23rd, 2004. It includes Eric Martin and Jack Blades. Eric Martin on lead vocals, Jack Blades on bass, background vocals, and co-lead vocals on Everything Passes Away. Of course, Eric Martin vocals Mr. Big, Jack Blades many places, but Night Ranger probably where you would know him most. Jack Blades and Eric Martin wrote all the lyrics, while Matsumoto basically did all the music. This album topped the Oricon album charts, which is the Japanese music charts, selling over 90,000 copies, while the single "Oh Japan, Our Time" has now reached number 3 on the Oricon singles charts with 98,346 copies, was the 95th best-selling single of the year. Overall, listening to this, it sounds a little bit bluesy, not too surprising. That's kind of a vibe you get from Mr. Big on some of their albums, so it feels like it fits there. Otherwise, there's kind of a rock element to it. It was really enjoyable beginning to end. I did want to kind of talk a little bit about Matsumoto because obviously we do on this podcast talk all things Japan from time to time. It's been a while, but this is probably a good chance to do that. Matsumoto was the guitarist and major composer for the rock duo Bees. They are the best-selling music act by record sales in Japan music history, having sold 86 million records. Just wanted to run through the top 5 of that list because I thought it was kind of interesting. Number 2 is AKB48. The girl group has sold 73.4 million records. Mr. Children is third at 60.01 million. Ayumi Hamasaki at 50.708 million. And Dreams Come True at 44.94 million. That's the top 5 of record sales. This was released in 2004. They didn't release another album till their 2024 release, TMG 2. But it's definitely worth a listen. I really enjoyed it. And if you're a fan, especially of those bands that kind of made it big in Japan, like Mr. Big, I think you're going to dig this. Standout tracks include "Oh Japan, Our Time Is Now," "Kings for a Day," "The Greatest Show on Earth," and "Trapped." With the guys involved, there's no way this couldn't be good. I really enjoyed this. It's definitely worth people checking out. And again, if you haven't checked out Bees, you also need to check out Bees because for Japanese rock, they are really outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So prolific, so many great songs, and even if you're just into like anime music, they have so many great songs they've contributed to anime over the years. And it seems like between the 2 and 3 Matsumoto albums, he was still really busy with Bees releasing stuff too. So it's not like the dude's taking a break or anything. He's still out there doing it. So amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Next week on The Vault, we'll tease this again. I teased it a little bit last week. We're going to listen to an album from the first ever band who had an album released by Frontiers Records. So it was a double live album. We're not going to listen to the double live album, but it was the first album that the Frontiers put their name on and put out there in the world. So we're going to find out what band earned that honor, what sound of a band was deserving of being the first for Frontier. So that'll be coming up next week on The Vault. But it is time to get to our question of the week. Of course, that is the Power Trio, your weekly hard rock hat trick. And this week, we're talking more Christmas music. We're going to do that for 3 weeks. Last week, we did top 3 Christmas songs of any genre. So really just any Christmas, holiday, winter, whatever you want songs. It's in there. Doesn't matter what genre of music. This week, we're narrowing it down. We are getting into the metal category, the top 3 metal Christmas songs. And there's a lot of great metal Christmas songs out there. And I definitely encourage you to just do a YouTube search because there's been several like compilation albums released, and some of those have some amazing tracks. And I imagine some of those tracks are going to be mentioned on this podcast in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But you definitely need to check those out. There's also many metal bands who have done Christmas albums, which is maybe a little surprising in some cases. One specifically that we'll mention, maybe a little surprising. But overall, a lot of really great stuff out there. Did we get anything from Shane this week?
We didn't. We talked about it, and obviously his picks last week were all fairly hard rock and
Yeah.
metal-centric, so those would have been what he would have picked for this category anyway, so nothing new there.
Fair enough. And Chris not in the chat at the moment, so...
Yeah, he said he didn't have any this week. He posted in Discord.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So just you and I, it looks
Yeah.
like, for which means less chance of all my picks being taken before I get there
Very true.
this time. But Mike, what did you have for us with our top 3 metal Christmas songs?
Yeah, so you mentioned compilations, and there was one that came out like in 2008. We Wish You a Metal Christmas and a Headbanging New Year. An amazing compilation album with kind of ensemble pairings as far as who was doing the music together. And for my money, one of the best songs to come off of that album is from Ronnie James Dio, Tony Iommi, Rudy Sarzo, and Simon Wright. It is God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. If there was ever a Christmas song you want to hear Ronnie James Dio sing, it's that one. And man, does he nail it! I wish we could have gotten a full Christmas album from Dio, but man, this is definitely not a bad thing.
That's on my list too. You can't think of metal Christmas without thinking of that song. Like, if I don't hear that at least once during the holiday season, I'm going to be a little sad. I did get to hear it again today, so I think we're good for the year. But that's an amazing song.
I mean, it just feels like a song that could have just been a Black Sabbath with Dio song. Like the way their composition of it, just it feels like that. Just that kind of epic downtrodden sound to it. It's great.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me, a band that you wouldn't expect, obviously, to have a Christmas album, Bad Religion. I went with "O Come All Ye Faithful" from their Christmas Songs EP.
I will have some overlap there, but not the same song. But yeah, Bad Religion. I believe the whole album is like 19 minutes long or something like that, so don't blink. But in Bad Religion form, they have taken these Christmas classics and made them their own. And for a band that's clearly not overly religious, just based on everything there, they did an amazing job with that album.
Well, it's funny because Christmas songs, like the old standard Christmas songs, are written like they're Bad Religion songs.
Yes.
Like you can get in there, you can get them done in like a minute and a half, and you're out. And that just lends itself so well to them covering them. But man, they just their style of ultra melodic, harmonious punk music just works so well with Christmas songs.
For sure, no question about it.
And finally, jumping back to that 2008 compilation, we are going with Jeff Tate, Carlos Cavazo, James Lomenzo, and Ray Luzier doing their version of Silver Bells.
Okay, it's been a while since I've heard that one, but I'm sure with those people involved, there's no way it couldn't be good.
Yeah, I think that's just an obvious choice for Jeff Tate to sing as far as what Christmas song you want to hear from him. But kind of just like Dio, it'd be interesting to hear his take on some of the other ones as well. But just great stuff. I do have one honorable mention. One that I feel like I need to listen to more. I haven't listened to it nearly enough, but it's from 1985. It is King Diamond with his track "No Presents for Christmas." It was released as a single, later released on his 1988 Dark Sides EP, and eventually included on the remaster for Fatal Portrait. It's King Diamond. I mean,
There's no way it can't be good.
yeah, you look at my picks, and it's just like you have vocalists like Dio, Jeff Tate, and King Diamond. I mean, that's just that can't be bad. Any of it can.
No, not at all. So really great stuff there. I did have the Dio song. I listed 5 because I figured if we had a bunch of people picking, there would be some overlap there. The Dio, God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, is amazing, and everybody should go listen to it. I also picked a song from the Bad Religion album. I went with Hark the Herald Angels Sing. To me, I really enjoy that because like they start off a cappella at the very beginning of the album, and it's just like, it just reminds you like how, not that you don't know how great these guys are, but it's like that could be any choir singing the beginning of the song. Then they just speed through the last like 2 or 3 verses of the song in the next like 45 seconds. But it's amazing.
There's nothing punk about a cappella, but they make it work.
Somehow they make it work. One I found today that I didn't know existed, and I was looking through a bunch of stuff, but I just want to throw it out there because I knew it would be kind of off the radar for both of us. I found a video of Camelot doing an an instrumental song, version of "We Three Kings." It's wild, like it's all over the place. It feels like Trans-Siberian Orchestra doing "We Three Kings" and some sort of wild instrumental. But definitely check it out if you get a chance. I was actually really impressed
I
by
think
it.
any kind of proggy symphonic metal band could do all sorts of craziness with Christmas music, so that doesn't surprise me.
So I had a feeling you were going to pick the Dio song off of this album, and I don't particularly like this song, But I feel like we couldn't go through this podcast without mentioning this song, and that is the classic by Lemmy Kilmister, Billy Gibbons, and Dave Grohl, Run, Rudolph, Run.
Best version of that song.
For sure. But if you haven't listened to that, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
That's not a bad song. It's not Paul McCartney Christmas song bad by
Gosh.
any means.
I was we should do that for a topic, the 3 worst Christmas songs, and that one would just be 1, 2, and 3. Like, oh, that song is so bad. I have an honorable mention as well, and it's kind of off the beaten path a bit, but it's one that I remember hearing a long time ago, and I kind of got reminded of it today. And that is the song by a comedian, Bob Rivers. It is I Am Santa Claus, the classic parody of Iron Man. It's very well done. It's true to the original, and there's not much more I can say about it than you should go find it and listen to it.
It's every bit as good as Mac Sabbath is, honestly. As far as
Sabbath.
As Black Sabbath tribute / parody acts, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely worth checking out. Looking at the rest of this album, it's just the talent, first off, they got for this Christmas album is totally ridiculous. I mean, Joe Lynn Turner singing Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, Tommy Shaw singing Happy Xmas War is Over. We also have Bumblefoot doing Frosty the Snowman on the bonus tracks. Because Bumblefoot has to come up on our podcast at least once every month or two. Alice Cooper doing Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I mean, Timber
but spelled Santa Claus, CLAWS.
Yes. It's just you should go pick that album up if you want to really get in the festive mood for the season. That album, and then throw in the Bad Religion Christmas album
and the Billy Idol Christmas
album. Definitely worth checking out. But let us know what you like. What metal songs out there, Christmas versions that you enjoy. Join our Discord. Let us know. And, of course, we'll spotlight some of those answers on the podcast. But that is going to get ready to take care of this edition of the Hard Rock Empire. So glad you've joined us once again for another episode. We'll be back again with you next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. For the music of November the 21st, it'll be episode number 95 of the Hard Rock Empire and episode 198 for the Nerdcast Empire coming up next Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. A big thanks to Mike for all the work he puts in on this podcast. A big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast. And a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are listening to our podcast. We'll be back with you again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.